Hier, le président Vladimir
Leaders
Poutine
of
a
African
annoncé donc
states should not
l'envoi
be
des céréales en
puppets
Afrique. Nous sommes bien contents.
when
Nous lui disons merci pour
imperialists.
cela.
What does the West do with African leaders who refuse to be their puppet? The West treats them as enemies, employing various tactics to remove them from power. This includes instigating coups against them, as is currently the case with Ibrahim Traoré. He has already endured 9 coup attempts, all attempted by external forces. Despite strong local support, Traoré faces animosity from the West. Perhaps this is because he has steadfastly refused to comply with their agenda of control. But how has Traoré managed to protect himself from these coup attempts? Let's find out. In African politics, a recurring pattern emerges. Whenever an African leader decides to cut ties with Western countries or pursue policies that challenge Western interests, they are quickly labeled a threat or an enemy. This is a tactic employed to undermine and destabilize leaders who dare to prioritize their nation's sovereignty over the demands of external powers. Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso, exemplifies this phenomenon. No leader in African history has faced as many coup attempts as Traoré. Traoré's leadership has been a beacon of resistance against neocolonialism. His commitment to pursuing policies that benefit his people rather than appeasing Western powers has made him a target. Time and again, internal destabilizing forces manipulated by external actors have tried to oust him, but they have consistently failed. Each failed attempt only seems to solidify his resolve and the support of the Burkinabe people. Recently, an attack was reported at the presidential palace in Burkina Faso, highlighting the persistent threats Traoré faces. An unidentified individual launched a sudden and violent assault on the guard station, aiming to breach the president's security. The objective was undoubtedly to eliminate President Traoré, but with the decisive intervention of the soldiers on duty, security forces managed to control the situation and prevent further violence. This incident marks the 9th coup attempt against Traoré in 2 years. So, what is Traoré's story? Ibrahim Traoré has been a formidable leader, known for his staunch opposition to Western dominance. His leadership has been characterized by a series of bold decisions aimed at asserting Burkina Faso's sovereignty. He has pursued a path of independence, resisting external pressures to align with Western agendas. Traoré's policies focus on national self-reliance, economic empowerment, and political autonomy, setting him apart as a leader dedicated to his nation's true interests. The recent attack on his life is a stark reminder of the dangers he faces. This attempt to eliminate him underscores the lengths to which his adversaries will go to destabilize his administration. Despite receiving overwhelming support from his citizens, Traoré's presidency has been marred by continuous threats. These threats predominantly emanate from factions within the Burkinabe army, highlighting the internal divisions and the influence of external forces that seek to undermine his leadership. These internal adversaries, often influenced by external forces, have persistently sought to destabilize his government. This relentless opposition points to a broader strategy of external manipulation aimed at disrupting the governance of nations that refuse to toe the Western line. Traoré's experience exemplifies the challenges faced by African leaders who dare to prioritize their nation's sovereignty over external interests, painting a vivid picture of the ongoing struggle for genuine independence and self-determination on the continent. Who can these external forces be who try to harm Traor? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Let's talk about all the nations Burkina Faso is working with to see which one of them can be involved in the coup attempt. The West and external actors have played significant roles in the recent coup attempts in Burkina Faso, particularly in the context of the ongoing security crisis and the country's military instability. Understanding the influence of these external forces is crucial to comprehending the broader geopolitical dynamics at play. France has been a major player in the region, particularly in Burkina Faso, where it has maintained a military presence since 2013 under Operation Barkhane. This operation, aimed at combating violent groups in the Sahel region, has been a cornerstone of France's foreign policy in Africa. Despite its intentions, France's efforts have been widely criticized for failing to yield significant results in curbing the growing jihadist threat. The insurgency has not only persisted but, in many areas, intensified, leading to widespread disillusionment with French intervention. This perceived ineffectiveness has fueled local resentment towards French involvement. The sentiment of anti-French sentiment was vividly displayed when protesters waving Russian flags attacked the French embassy and the French Institute in Ouagadougou. This incident was not an isolated one, but part of a broader trend of increasing discontent among the Burkinabe people. The demonstrators accused France of exploiting Burkina Faso's resources while failing to address the security concerns of its people. Many locals suspect that France might have played a role in the coup attempts due to its dissatisfaction with Burkina Faso's warming ties with Russia, viewing the European power as a destabilizing force that has outstayed its welcome. Additionally, France's historical colonial ties to the region and its ongoing influence in its former colonies' political and economic spheres contribute to a legacy of mistrust. Many Burkinabe citizens view France's actions as an extension of neo-colonial practices, where the former colonizer continues to exert undue influence over the sovereign affairs of the nation. This perspective has been exacerbated by France's involvement in the region's resource extraction industries, which many locals believe benefit French interests disproportionately while leaving the local population impoverished and insecure. But let's also not forget Russia. Can it cause a threat? Russia's role in Burkina Faso, particularly through its private military company, the Wagner Group, represents a significant shift in the geopolitical landscape of West Africa. While there is no clear evidence of direct Russian involvement in the coup attempts, the presence of Wagner mercenaries has been noted. These mercenaries are known for their involvement in various African conflicts, often supporting regimes that align with Russian strategic interests. The group's presence in Burkina Faso has been welcomed by the new junta leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, who views Russian support as a counterbalance to Western influence. Russia's involvement is seen as a potential game-changer in the region, shifting the balance of power away from traditional Western allies. Traoré's decision to strengthen ties with Russia indicates his strategic pivot towards an ally he believes will respect Burkina Faso's sovereignty more than the traditional Western powers. This relationship is based on mutual benefits, with Russia looking to expand its influence in Africa through military and economic cooperation, while Burkina Faso seeks a partner that supports its fight against insurgency without the strings attached to Western aid. The Wagner Group's activities in the Central African Republic and other African nations suggest a pattern of Russian support for governments that challenge Western dominance. In exchange for military assistance, these governments often grant Russia access to valuable natural resources and strategic military bases. In Burkina Faso, the presence of Russian mercenaries is seen as a stabilizing force that could help the country address its security challenges more effectively than the French military. Given Traoré's alignment with Russia, it is unlikely that Russia would attempt a coup against him, as it aligns with their broader geopolitical interests to support a leader willing to challenge Western hegemony. How about the US? The United States has traditionally had limited influence in the Sahel region compared to France. However, its involvement in Burkina Faso, primarily through humanitarian aid and counterterrorism efforts, reflects its strategic interest in the region. The US has been providing humanitarian relief and has expressed criticism of military takeovers, advocating for democratic governance and stability. Despite these efforts, the US's influence remains overshadowed by France's long-standing presence. However, the US has a vested interest in countering Russian influence worldwide, including in Africa. The growing ties between Burkina Faso and Russia have undoubtedly raised concerns in Washington. The US views Russia's expanding influence in Africa as part of a broader geopolitical contest, reminiscent of Cold War-era rivalries. This perspective drives US policy to counteract Russian moves, even in regions where its direct influence is minimal. It is plausible that the US, alongside France, might perceive Traoré's government as a threat to their strategic interests in the region, potentially leading to efforts to undermine his leadership. The US and France share a common objective of limiting Russian influence, and this shared goal could motivate coordinated actions against Traoré's administration. Reports of increased US diplomatic and intelligence activities in the region suggest a heightened focus on countering Russian influence and supporting allies that align with Western interests. Additionally, the U.S. has been involved in capacity-building programs for local security forces, aimed at enhancing their ability to combat terrorism and maintain stability. However, these programs often come with conditions that align local policies with U.S. strategic interests, creating friction with leaders like Traoré who prioritize national sovereignty. The U.S.'s emphasis on human rights and democratic governance also clashes with the realpolitik approach of supporting leaders who challenge Western dominance, complicating its involvement in regions like Burkina Faso. But what does the West want? Throughout history, Western powers such as the United States and France have maintained a strong interest in Africa's vast and diverse resources. Unlike China, which primarily engages in trade partnerships, Western nations often exert influence and control over African governments to secure access to these valuable resources. This historical pattern reveals a complex dynamic where economic interests intersect with geopolitical strategies, shaping the relationships between African nations and Western powers. When an African government aligns its policies with Western interests, it frequently leads to agreements that provide the West with privileged access to the country's natural wealth. These agreements are often criticized for disproportionately benefiting Western corporations and governments, while offering minimal compensation to the host nations. This exploitation has underscored the underlying agenda of Western nations in their engagements with African countries, despite the rhetoric of partnership and development often touted in high-profile summits between African and Western leaders. In contrast to Western preferences, leaders like Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso have pursued alternative partnerships, particularly with countries like China and Russia. These partnerships prioritize mutual benefit and respect national sovereignty, challenging the traditional dominance of Western influence in African affairs. Traoré's stance aligns with a growing sentiment among African leaders who seek to diversify their international relations beyond historical ties with former colonial powers. However, Traoré's alignment with China and Russia, rather than the West, has positioned him as a perceived adversary in the eyes of Western powers. The preference for non-Western partnerships has not only strained relations, but also potentially fueled suspicions and opposition from Western governments. The Western disdain for Traoré's choices could manifest in covert actions aimed at undermining his leadership, such as supporting internal factions or influencing military interventions to destabilize his government. The strategic competition for influence in Africa between Western powers and emerging global players like China and Russia further complicates Traoré's political landscape. While China and Russia offer alternative avenues for economic and political cooperation, they also present challenges to Western hegemony and influence in the region. This geopolitical rivalry underscores the complexities of African sovereignty and the choices faced by its leaders in navigating international relations that balance economic development, political stability, and national autonomy. Ties with Russia and China are not enough reason to hate Traoré. What else Traoré did do to make the West hate him? Ibrahim Traoré's administration in Burkina Faso has actively pursued policies aimed at reducing French influence, marking a significant departure from the country's historical ties as a former French colony. Traoré has publicly criticized what he perceives as neo-colonial practices and economic exploitation by former colonial powers, particularly France. His anti-France rhetoric has been characterized by calls for greater autonomy and sovereignty in Burkina Faso's foreign relations, challenging the continued influence of Western powers in African affairs. In practical terms, Traoré's government has taken concrete steps to diminish French presence and influence in Burkina Faso. This includes the expulsion of French military personnel and the reduction of bilateral military cooperation agreements. The decision to withdraw French Special Operations troops from Burkina Faso was a notable diplomatic maneuver that underscored Traoré's commitment to asserting Burkina Faso's control over its security policies and military affairs. The deterioration in Burkina Faso-France relations due to Traoré's policies reflects broader tensions between African nations seeking greater autonomy and former colonial powers attempting to maintain influence through economic, military, and diplomatic means. Traoré's stance against French dominance has positioned him as a symbol of resistance to Western hegemony in Africa, garnering both support and criticism domestically and internationally. Western powers, including France and the United States, perceive Ibrahim Traoré's policies and actions as direct challenges to their historical influence and strategic interests in Burkina Faso and the broader Sahel region. Traoré's refusal to participate in Western-led summits and his efforts to reduce foreign military presence are viewed as impediments to Western agendas aimed at maintaining economic, military, and political influence in African countries. The strategic importance of Burkina Faso, particularly its resources and geographical position in the Sahel, underscores the geopolitical stakes involved in Western reactions to Traoré's leadership. Western governments have reportedly engaged in covert operations and supported internal factions opposed to Traoré's government, reflecting a broader geopolitical struggle for influence and control over African nations amidst shifting global dynamics. This situation is parallel to Thomas Sankara. The parallels between Ibrahim Traoré's current situation and the events surrounding Thomas Sankara in the 1980s are striking, highlighting recurring themes of defiance against external powers and the struggle for African sovereignty. In the 1980s, Thomas Sankara emerged as a transformative leader in Burkina Faso, then known as Upper Volta. He boldly confronted colonial powers, particularly France, by expelling them from his country and initiating sweeping reforms aimed at achieving self-sufficiency and dignity for his people. Sankara's leadership was characterized by his staunch opposition to neocolonialism and his commitment to eradicating corruption and inequality. Sankara's policies were revolutionary for their time. He renamed the country Burkina Faso, meaning land of the upright people, and implemented agrarian reforms, mass vaccination programs, and gender equality measures. His government actively promoted grassroots mobilization and self-reliance, aiming to break away from Western dependency and exploitation. However, Sankara's uncompromising stance against Western economic interests and his nationalist policies posed a direct threat to those who profited from Burkina Faso's resources. His efforts to nationalize industries and redistribute land challenged entrenched power structures both domestically and internationally. This made him a target for powerful external entities that perceived his reforms as destabilizing to their economic and geopolitical interests in the region. Despite his popularity among Burkinabe citizens and his international acclaim as a symbol of African independence, Sankara faced concerted opposition. Allegations of Western support for internal dissent and covert operations aimed at undermining his government grew prominent. In October 1987, Thomas Sankara was assassinated in a coup d'état orchestrated by his former ally, Blaise Compaoré, with alleged support from external powers. Similarly, Ibrahim Traoré's presidency in Burkina Faso has been marked by defiance against Western dominance and efforts to assert national sovereignty. Traoré's policies, including his anti-France rhetoric and expulsion of foreign military forces, mirror Sankara's actions in challenging external interference and reclaiming control over Burkina Faso's resources and governance. Like Sankara, Traoré's leadership has faced persistent challenges and attempts to destabilize his government, reportedly orchestrated with external support. The ongoing coup attempts and internal unrest reflect broader geopolitical tensions over African autonomy and Western influence in the Sahel region. But how did Traoré always save himself from a coup? Faced with the persistent threat of coups and external interference, Ibrahim Traoré has implemented rigorous security measures to safeguard his presidency and maintain stability in Burkina Faso. Recognizing the gravity of the threats against him, Traoré has significantly bolstered his personal security details. He ensures that he is constantly surrounded by loyal and well-trained forces, both within his official residences and during public appearances. This proactive approach aims to create a protective shield around him, minimizing vulnerabilities that could be exploited by coup plotters or external agents seeking to destabilize his government. Traoré's security strategy includes the strategic deployment of military and paramilitary units known for their allegiance to his administration. Specialized units tasked with presidential security have been reinforced and equipped with advanced surveillance technology and communication systems. These measures not only enhance Traoré's physical protection, but also enable rapid response to potential threats, ensuring that any attempt to breach his security perimeter is swiftly contained. In addition to physical security enhancements, Traoré has invested in intelligence gathering and surveillance capabilities. This includes monitoring internal communications networks and scrutinizing movements and activities within the military and political spheres. By maintaining a vigilant stance on potential threats and monitoring for signs of internal dissent or external manipulation, Traoré's administration aims to preemptively neutralize coup attempts before they can materialize into active threats. Beyond military and security measures, Traoré recognizes the importance of maintaining public support and civilian protection. His administration has implemented community policing initiatives and outreach programs aimed at fostering trust and collaboration between the government and local communities. These efforts not only enhance public safety, but also serve as a deterrent against civilian unrest or protests that could be exploited by coup plotters. Internationally, Traoré continues to navigate diplomatic challenges by forging strategic alliances with countries that support Burkina Faso's sovereignty and non-interference principles. By cultivating diplomatic ties with nations outside traditional Western spheres of influence, Traoré diversifies his geopolitical support base and mitigates the risk of isolation or diplomatic pressure from Western powers opposed to his leadership. Does all the coup attempts mean he is the best leader? Traoré's prioritization of Burkina Faso's national interests over external influences is evident in his policies and actions. By distancing himself from Western powers and attending to partnerships with nations like Russia and China, Traoré has demonstrated a commitment to asserting Burkina Faso's sovereignty and pursuing relationships that align with national priorities. The frequency of coup attempts can be seen as a measure of Traoré's challenge to external dominance and interference in Burkina Faso's affairs. His refusal to attend Western-led summits and expulsion of foreign militaries are direct actions against traditional forms of external control and influence, particularly from former colonial powers. Do you think Traoré is the best leader Burkina Faso ever had? Do you support him? Why does the West hate him? Let us know in the comment section. Do they hate him because he is not a puppet? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.